ever thought about being a woman in the South or being a second-class citizen or any of those things. She just was a woman in the South. Feeling something makes you that way. She had a very strong abusive mom, verbally and physically abusive. Physically abusive to the boys primarily, but verbally abusive to the girls. They could tell the way he walked, whether he was in a good mood or a bad mood. And if he was in a bad mood, they hid. And I ran and I cried and I ran and I cried. I had never heard my mother say one unkind word about her mother. I was probably about 2 years old. And I remember on the path going through the woods, and I got on the road, and I was barefoot. I had on a pinafore dress, a little sunback dress, and a bonnet. And I remember I was terrified. Hey, I'm not afraid. Feeling something makes you that way. They were poor. They grew up in a log house. They wore hand-me-down clothes, walked to school. Papa did not believe in education for girls, and Mother had to quit school in 4th grade. And that's not how I want to live my life. She worked for almost minimum wage for years. She washed her uniforms by hand with a washboard and a tub outside. Her sweating, the light on, and ironing her uniforms. But they were always immaculate. And she wore white hose and white shoes, and her white shoes were always socks. So her job, her uniform, became something for her to hide behind because she was so embarrassed or felt inferior because of her lack of education and because she'd never been anywhere or done anything. And that's not how I want to live my life. And I wanted to play. And I did. I did not respect authority. I couldn't really say who I was. Sort of the way I've lived my life. I was a loner. I socialized. I had friends, girlfriends and boyfriends, and we did normal things. I always felt
I ran and I cried and I ran and I cried.
Somewhat detached.
And say, I'm not afraid.
As if I couldn't really say who I was. And I ran and I cried and I ran and I cried. But I was terrified. I was 20 the first time I got married.
I did not accept
we moved to Charlotte,
but I never felt second class.
And I went to work for a radio television station.
No.
And that was the real breakdown of the marriage.
And no.
I was seeing for the first time in my life
in a way I felt violated.
People who did think, people who had ideas, creative people. And to me, being from Eden, I mean, it was almost like being in New York City. And I wanted to participate in that world. So she, 16 or 17, lied about her age and got a job at Billcrest Mills. And that's where she married my father, or met my father, and then eventually married him. They didn't tell anybody they were going to get married except her brother and sister-in-law, who were close in age. And that night, Daddy went home to his parents' house, and Mother went home to her parents' house. I met your dad when I was about 25. At that time, he invited all the things that I was interested in. He was very bright, wonderful sense of humor, artistic, musical, literate. We traveled a fair amount. We lived in San Francisco. So again, I got to meet interesting people who were doing interesting things, diverse people, different ethnic groups, different religions, different views on life. I felt suffocated. I felt invaded. In a way, I felt violated. Sometimes I do feel very sad that I have not had a lifelong partner. It seems like I always come back to North Carolina. We had come back to North Carolina At that time, Gordon had a severe alcohol problem. I finally, enough was enough. I had a child, and that's not how I wanted to live my life. And that's not how I wanted her to live her life. No.
And I wanted to fun.
No.
And that is.
And no,
I couldn't really say who I was.
I felt suffocated. I felt invaded. In a way, I felt violated.
I was afraid to look up.
And maybe there's nothing wrong with me.
I ran and I cried and I ran.
She was not strong in the way that I particularly admire. Although I probably have used some of her same devices to cope and to exist. Did she want to grow up and work in a mill and have a child and be unhappily married and go through all sorts of trauma? No. I was 35 when I remarried. And I married someone entirely different.
I felt suffocated. I felt invaded in a way.
And that didn't work.
And maybe there's nothing
He
wrong.
was a very good man. A very kind man. Neither of the three were bad men. I make choices that are not healthy for me, and they don't work. I don't like being married. Maybe that's it. Maybe they were not unhealthy choices. Maybe I spent all these years to try to find out what's wrong with me. And maybe there's nothing wrong with me. No. No. And no, I will never get married again. We all want security in some forms.
I did not accept all that was handed to me, but I never felt second class. Feeling something makes you that way.